Paul says to Timothy, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture.
Yeah.
Faith comes by hearing, Paul also says.
But the public reading of Scripture, I come back to vast majority of churches, what will happen is you might get a few verses, maybe half the chapter, maybe a whole chapter read, and then you'll get a sermon. And so most of the time is not public reading of Scripture. Most of the time is actually someone else interpreting or unpacking the Scriptures. Have we lost something of the importance of just actually reading the text?
I think we have. Now, I don't want in any way to be partisan about this. I think it was always good that the standard sort of Church of England service will have a psalm. It will have at least one reading, possibly two or even three from Scripture, Old Testament, epistle and gospel, as well as a psalm. Now, what you do with that in a sermon is another thing. Other traditions will read just a few verses, but if they're really doing the stuff, they'll expound those verses really thoroughly. There are different ways to do it. But I do get frustrated sometimes when, a passage of Scripture is read, sometimes not very long, and the sermon seems to be on something completely other, just a thematic set of thoughts that don't relate to the text of Scripture. So if I have a core value about preaching, it's follow the contours of Scripture. So really close exegetical expository preaching is appropriate, verse by verse, when you've got quite close concentrated doctrinal teaching. But if you've got a wider narrative sweep, something like Esther, then you might want to take longer chunks and preach on those week by week. It doesn't really matter, but it has to be faithful to what I call the landscape or the contours of Scripture. And I worry that a lot of our preaching and teaching these days is not. It's kind of tangential to the text of Scripture. And my formation in the Reformed tradition and in the evangelical faith, which I take really seriously, has made me really, really committed to scriptural preaching.